Hello YouTube, this is old Sasquatch here, and I have an important message for you all, and the reason why I don't fly the American flag, and I never will. For years upon years, they have been using the South, taking advantage of us, and we get nothing in return except mockery and hate. Hate. They teach about it being the cause of slavery, yada yada yada, but they don't tell the truth. It was a tax war upon taxes, and innocent Southerners were the victims to this, while some of the rich Southern owners that were basically 70% Jewish at the time were, in fact, the ones behind that. But they don't talk about that. The federal budget of 1860 to 1861, what they put upon the South was $80 million in today's standards. Then they were also doing the same with the southern ports, the tariffs, which was the black tariff and the moral tariff, which was $70 million, which they don't talk about. Instead, they talk about slavery, etc. But after the war, they basically sent men down to the South. They murdered them. They raped them, raped their women, raped their children, and killed them. They killed them. From 1861 to 1865, the Confederacy was a Christian nation. They were. And they actually took their way. They risked their life to save the Christian church in America by doing the Third Great Awakening, the Confederate Revival. They brought the churches together, and it first started in Northern Virginia and then spread out through the entire armies of the South. Yes, it did. And then, in about 1898, they basically had invaded Hawaii. The same year, the United States had also decided they were to go to war with coal miners in Appalachia because they could not pay taxes. And this was called the Coal Creek War of Northeast Tennessee. And they were too poor to pay taxes because they were not getting paid. So the federal government went to war with them, but they ended up winning. And then, from the 1840s to the 1870s, Native Americans were slaughtered. Now, on my mother's side, I'm part Native American, but there was Cherokee slaughtered in that, Choctaw. There was also Creek, Powhatan, Sioux. Also, I'm trying to remember the other one, but a bunch of them. And they never surrendered. Never did. But the United States had made peace with them until they eventually took all their land. They had made peace and then took all their land. And that was a part of cultural genocide. Then they did the same to the South. And then, from 1946, right after World War II, U.S. veterans had come home from Tennessee. And they were not getting paid at all by the government. So they went to their armory. They went and got guns, went to D.C., and they marched until Congress actually paid them. That was called Athens, Tennessee. And it worked too. And then, I already told y'all about 1898, the Coal Mine War. Well, 1921, you had the Battle of Blair Mountain, where Appalachian coal miners were murdered because they could not pay taxes. They were murdered. So the United States federal government, they literally sent their own men there and killed them. And to the ones He was with their families trying to protect them. They were shot and killed. 10,000 coal miners had died at the Battle of Blair Mountain. And they were wearing red bandanas. They called themselves the Rednecks. And you know why? Because it was to show there wouldn't be no blood on them. No blood. And yet, when you see somebody basically insult somebody and call them try to think they insult them by calling them a redneck, it's really a compliment, because they fought for freedom. They fought for a miners' union, for being paid. While they had gone through war from 1898 to the 70s, it happened they got their freedom. But during that, you had the Coal Creek War of 1898. You had Blair Mountain. You had Battle of Bloody Harlan. And you had the Colorado Coalfield Wars, and much more. But they don't want to talk about that. They never do, because it doesn't suit their agenda. But the truth is, the truth will set you free, and they don't want you to know that. Now, back to what I was saying about those taxes upon the South. Those were actually by greedy southern cities. The big southern cities, the greedy ones, where you had a mass influence of Talmudic Jews, false Jews, that basically were in charge of the money. And while they were doing that, they had poor Southerners victims to that. And therefore they were invaded. They were invaded at Harper's Ferry a month before the war. Then you had the Battle of Baltimore. But it technically wasn't part of the war. But it was a month before. Then you had Fort Sumter. So you had two battles that started it. But they don't talk about that. And then there was Fort Sumter. And they had fired upon the ships at Fort Sumter. Not only the fort, but the ships, because they were carrying taxes. They had taxpayers on those boats, and they were going to sink them, because they were fixing to make Southerners pay more and more and make them go more and more in debt. So they fired. They fired so they wouldn't lose everything. They were justified in that. They really were. But yet, when you talk about that, you instantly get demonized by the media. They call you a Nazi or a white supremacist, etc. Yet they don't realize that a majority of the Confederacy was not white. Not white. At all. They had Native Americans. They also had Mexicans. They had Cubans. They had Jamaicans, Bermudans, Caribbeans, Hawaiians. It's a lot. Even Africans and African Americans. And they were volunteers because they knew what was happening. Native Americans had joined the Confederate Army because they knew they basically were in the same thing, because the United States wanted them dead too. And the Confederacy had promised them that they would give them a land after the war that the Union had taken. And so 1863 came by. Then West Virginia was illegally seceded because of panhandling in the northern part by money. And therefore the people had no say. But the majority of them joined the Virginia Confederate Army because they knew what was happening. They knew. But they're not going to tell you about that, ever. Because they think it doesn't belong in American history. And then in I didn't say that. It was in the 1870s. Reconstruction. Bloody Reconstruction. How basically before that, Sherman's army had burned churches throughout the South. In South Carolina to Georgia and Tennessee, Virginia, all over the South, basically. Churches had been burned. Cities had been burned to the ground. And basically, now you have carpetbaggers, you have people that hate us that are doing an ongoing Southern cultural genocide. They would attack our history, our monuments, our heritage, and our Christian way of life. They would rather attack that and basically use it as a joke or a thing against us, despite us risking our lives. Basically, because a majority of the South has basically been in the military. A majority. A majority of the military bases are in the South. But yet, when you explain to them that you're Southern and all that, they'll attack you for it. They will attack you. They'll attack you for your accent, your way of life, your heritage, and of course, your accent. They don't want you. They don't want you alive. During this COVID-19 outbreak, they've been using it to strip us of our rights, but not only that, but they have been demonizing our way of life. I've seen many of people on Twitter have been saying it, that they want the COVID-19 to kill us, etc. That is beyond evil. And yet y'all call us the evil ones. So-called fellow Americans is what you call us. But yet it is not like that. America is a corporation. And it's been one. In the early 1800s, they don't call New England traitors. New England tried to secede. The New England Republic. And then the South tried to secede right after them. For the first time. Then Andrew Jackson had basically threatened to kill them all. And burn them and rape their people. What happened after that? Then they seceded in 1861. I will never fly the American flag because it's a tyrannical imperial symbol that murdered my people, and whenever we basically have fought in their pathetic wars, etc., we come home, we're persecuted, etc., and we're hated for being Southern. That is the truth. Why should we pledge allegiance to a nation that hates us? When the Confederacy was a Christian nation, in their preamble, in their Constitution, it says this, under God, our Vindicator. Meanwhile, the United States Constitution does not. It does not. And it's sad to say, but it is true. They have removed God from this country. And I do believe Southern secession is our only hope to bring back our freedom that our ancestors and us once had. Because it has been stolen from us, from federal tyranny, carpetbaggers, and of course, American imperialists. This is cultural Marxism we're seeing, how they're basically demonizing us for our culture, our history, and our way of life, as they take down our statues, as they ban us, as they ban our Christian flag, known as the battle flag, St. Andrew's Cross, the Southern Cross, and all of the flags of the Confederacy, including the one behind me, Robert E. Lee Headquarters flag, based upon the Ark of the Covenant. Robert E. Lee was a Christian man, but yet they'll demonize him too. And to the ones who basically call them traitors, etc., it was during 1866. Jefferson Davis had been taken into court. They were going to try him for treason. And then Lincoln's own lawyer had said this: we cannot condemn him for secession because it was legal. But if we were to condemn the South, we would have to condemn the Union for unconstitutional, tyrannical power and abuse of office. Have a blessed day. God bless you all. Dio Vindice. Semper Tyrannis, my friends. Stay woke. And also, I forgot to add one more thing. I think it's funny how they'll basically talk about that the South, they were small, etc., that they basically had nothing. But yet, we had colonies all over the world, including Bermuda, and South America, and Mexico. In Mexico, it was called New Texas Colony. And then we had Brazil, South America, and they were called the New Virginia Colony, aka Americana. Yes, Americana, where they were actually given that land by Emperor Maximilian of Mexico himself. And that's the reason why I will not fly the American flag, ever. So I hope you have a blessed day. God bless you all. Dio Vindice, and have a blessed week, my friends.